Hello, everyone. It's Carol Laurie, naturopath, acupuncturist, homeopath, and your integrative breast cancer expert. I'm here today with a dear friend and colleague of mine, Mira Dessy, also known as the ingredient guru, and it's sort of a funny name, but it's also very important, and it describes exactly what she does really well. And she's going to be sharing with us tips and tools about how to go from an unhealthy kitchen closet to a healthy kitchen closet and life, and how to learn how to really empower yourself by taking charge of what you buy in the grocery store. So Mira, thank you and welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Carol. It's really great to see you again.
So it's lovely to be here with you. So why audience about a little bit how you got from just being your regular Mira Dessy to Mira Dessy, the ingredient guru, which is such an
Sure.
important title.
Well, thank you. It's so interesting because as I call it in my previous life, I thought I was doing well. I had what I thought was a good diet. My friends would always say, "Oh, you eat better than anybody I know." And it turns out that we really weren't, because eventually I became very ill. I wound up having a whole host of health issues, digestive disorders. I was weak. I was tired. I got dizzy all the time. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without lying down on the top stair and just, recovering.
That's
And
pretty serious.
oh yeah. I mean, I had to leave my job. I couldn't take care of my kids. I was really sick. And I had a whole bunch of doctors and a whole bunch of prescriptions, and I still wasn't getting better. And then one day, a friend of mine gave me a book that talked about artificial food colors. And I was so horrified by what I read that I began to do a whole bunch of research and to try and learn more. And the more I learned and the more I cleaned up my pantry, surprise, the healthier I got.
Here you
And
are.
yeah, and that actually led to me going back to school to become a certified nutrition educator. And from there, I developed this mission that I was going to empower and educate people about the fact that it's not just what you eat, it's what's in what you eat that has a major, major impact on your health and wellness. And from there, just eventually became the ingredient guru, because I'm one of those people that actually loves reading the labels at the grocery store. I love to see all the stupid stuff they do to our food.
Dangerous, dangerous stuff
Yes.
they do to our food.
Yes, and here's the thing, like I'm laughing about it, and I try to make it silly and I try to make it fun, and part of the reason for that is because it is a very overwhelming topic,
And it's serious.
and
Yeah.
and it is very, the problem is, for a lot of people, it's so overwhelming that they think, oh, ignorance is bliss, I'm just not going to pay attention. And so by trying to make it a little bit serious, and also by pointing out to people that every little thing that you do, every single baby step really does matter. It's not about doing it all at once, it's about doing it consistently.
I think that what you just said, I just have to take a minute, ladies, and just everybody needs to grasp that, which is when you're diagnosed with breast cancer or any chronic serious illness, as Mira was, or all of the women I see in my clinical practice, when you first start, you realize you have to change so many things. You want to change so many things to get better, that you're often frozen and you're thinking, how am I going to do this? So as Mira just said, one tiny little baby step at a time. And when we gather all of them together over a period of a week or a month or even 2 months, that's when you see, like, oh my goodness, I used to eat this way and I used to do that, and now I'm doing this. It takes time. It's not going to
Yes.
happen overnight.
No, and the other thing is, and when I'm working with clients, one of the things I encourage them to do is do one thing at a time, master that, and move on to the next one. Because once it's something that you don't even think about, if you have to learn, for example, to avoid artificial colors, you're reading everything and figuring out where they hide and how to avoid them. And it gets to the point where you just look at things, you're like, nope, I know I'm not buying that. And then you move on to the next thing, hormones in your dairy products or something else. So it's one step at a time. And eventually you look back and, like you said, it's like, wow, look at all these changes that I'm making now. Look at how much healthier I'm eating and my family is eating, and how much better we feel.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So how do women get started? And what do they need to look out for? Because for me, I generally say, okay, I know this is radical, but let's just not buy anything in a box. And they look at me like, what, is she crazy? Yeah, I'm crazy. But outside of like organic pasta or something, or gluten-free pasta, but like most women cannot live like that, especially when you're ill, and especially if other people are cooking for you during the food tree when you're in the middle of treatment. So what are some of the basics that are the most important that women need to know?
You know, one of the best things that you can do, you know, the three little words, read the label. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand if someone else is cooking for you, you can't really do that. And so it becomes a matter of advocating for yourself about some of these ingredients. But if you are doing any of the shopping, or if people do bring you things and you do have the opportunity to read the label, there are a few ingredients that I'd like to really talk about, especially because of their high, you know, correlation with cancer.
Good.
And so that would be really great. And obviously, you know, I keep harping on artificial colors, but man, those things are so bad for us. They're made from petrochemicals, and I've never really understood why we should be eating gasoline, mostly because we shouldn't. I
just have to put a plug in for Vaseline, because Vaseline is from a petrochemical. And women in my community are saying, oh, put Vaseline on your skin. It was like, oh my goodness, let's not do that.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I absolutely love, and if you'd like, let me make a note, I will send you, there is a fabulous product,
I know what you're going to say, from Third Rock. Yes.
Yes, it is the non-petroleum petroleum jelly. Yeah, it's awesome stuff.
It is. So I
that's a great choice
on the page today, and I will be posting for all of you who are watching a link to their natural neo whatever it's
Nutrolium.
Called. Nutrolium, yes.
Yeah, it's great stuff, and it even tastes good.
Yes, I mean that's the beauty of their products, is you can actually eat them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you put it on your lips, you're not like eating gasoline. Yes. Ugh. Anyhow, so artificial colors, the good news is they're very easy to identify in anything. And this is one of those things where it's not really just our food, it's our personal care products as well. Mm-hmm. You know, it'll say blue number whatever. Well, colors, real colors that come from things like beets or turmeric or raspberries or whatever don't have a number after them. So it's easy to identify. And there is a very strong link between thyroid and adrenal cancers, as well as kidney cancer, from these artificial colors. So that's definitely one of the big ones that you want to watch out.
Good.
A couple of others that I think people don't tend to think about, and I know if they're working with you, they're already learning how to give up soda and all of that kind of stuff.
I would hope so.
But sometimes it's a process, and these two ingredients actually appear in other things as well, sodium benzoate and potassium benzoate. So those benzoates are just really, really harmful for you. Mm-hmm. Part of it is because they can, the benzene, which is where the benzoate comes from, can actually build up. And especially if it's combined with ascorbic acid, vitamin C in anything. So like an orange soda with potassium benzoate is really horrible, because benzene is a known carcinogen. As a matter of fact, it's used in the lab to cause cancer in some things. And then, of course, talking about cancer-causing things, artificial sweeteners are another one. We absolutely don't want any of those in our diet anywhere. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when they're switching away from things like NutraSweet and Splenda and that sort of thing, they start shifting to Purevia and Truvia and all these things that say made with stevia or made from stevia, but they're not really stevia. They're chemical analogs. Because these companies, Cargill and Coca-Cola and all of that, they created their own version of stevia. You can't patent a plant, but you can patent it if you take that plant and you do something to it. And so that's what they've been doing. So we really want to watch out for that and skip those kinds of things. So anytime we see something, if we're looking at a label and we see that it has either, zero sugar or very few grams of sugar, we want to read that label and make sure that there's no artificial sweetener in that as well.
And that if there is an artificial sweetener, it's actually the stevia plant and not some analog of that. Because with cancer, especially, breast cancer, any type of cancer, there's something called the Warburg effect, which is where briefly the cancer will choose a more difficult route. Oxygen versus sugar, cancer will choose sugar. So we always advise women to be as sugar-free as possible. But unfortunately, I think a lot of women are now going towards the stevia, which is fine if it's the real product. But one of those Costco's or huge places where you can get a huge box of this sweetener stuff that is not the real thing, that's going to be harmful for you.
Right. And so there are two other sweeteners that I find are reasonable as well. One is called Lakanto or monk fruit. So that's a great choice.
Oh, perfect.
And then the other one is Yacon syrup. Yacon syrup is not that sweet. It is semi-sweet. And so for people who are really trying to cut back or who are looking for a more liquid sweetener, but they don't want to go as high as honey or maple syrup, that's fine. And while we're on the topic of sugars, everybody knows that high fructose corn syrup isn't good for you. And we just really want to watch out for that. 55% fructose by volume, bad for your liver, excess sugar, not good for cancer, not good for health. But there are two other things that are high in fructose also that we need to watch out for. Because fructose is a form of sugar. And unfortunately, we've been led to believe that if it says fructose, that means it's always from fruit. And that's not true.
That's a joke.
I know. And so one of them is called crystalline fructose. And crystalline fructose sometimes appears in some of those bottled waters. It's also frequently found in, some of those yogurt places that you go to where you serve yourself and, and then visit the candy bar. Crystalline fructose is the sweetener that they use for that. And in very, very simplistic terms, crystalline fructose is dehydrated high fructose corn syrup. And it's actually as much as 90% fructose by volume.
Wow.
So that really is not a great choice.
No.
And then the other one that a lot of people use that I am not a fan of is agave nectar.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Agave nectar got a lot of prominence because it is a low glycemic sweetener. It does not spike blood sugar the same way. Unfortunately, it is a traditional culture food from the ancient, Puebloan people and in Central America and all that kind of thing. But the way they processed it and the way we process it is very different.
I imagine.
And I have seen some reports that it can be as much as 70% fructose by volume. So it's not spiking your blood sugar, but you're still consuming all of that sugar. And, for a lot of people, what they may not understand is that the liver is really the only organ that can process fructose.
Right.
So when we eat a lot of sugar, a lot of fructose, from whether it's from fruit or from these other fructose sources, it goes straight to the liver. If we eat more than the liver can handle at any one time, it says, oh, I need to save that for later, and puts it into adipose or fatty tissue.
Right.
And
or fatty liver. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we all know, if you're dealing with cancer, toxins that are stored in fat, your body is going to have to deal with them at some point
Mhm.
as you shed those toxins. And so you can have this toxic dump down the road that can be quite harmful.
Yeah, really. And your liver is already overstretched when you're in the middle of chemo and radiation, dealing with all of that and trying to keep you as healthy as possible throughout the process.
hmm And one of the things that I really like to encourage people to do, especially when they're on a healing journey, is to look at like I said, it's very hard when someone's making you food to say, "Oh, I can't eat that." But if you can be proactive and make a list of these are the things that are not helpful for me
Mhm.
right now, so
Mhm.
if you have the sodium benzoate and the potassium benzoate and artificial sweeteners and the artificial colors, even MSG, those kinds of things. And if you put that on a little card and say, "Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that you want to cook for me and my family. These are
Exactly.
things that I need to watch out for right now because my body is in a rather fragile state." Now, it goes without saying that we want to continue that after treatment. We want to continue to eat that way because we're looking to nourish the body, not simply feed it. But by letting people know, you might actually be helping someone else make some healthy choices for themselves as well.
Well, I think that's really a wonderful idea. And part of the first module treatment is setting up your healing team. And
Mhm.
I recommend that people create an Excel spreadsheet and you just send it to all your friends with a calendar and say, "Here, I need food," and people can sign up for what works for them. But when you do that, as Mira just suggested, you can have a little column on the side, "PS, I need to avoid these foods. Please be conscious or considerate if you can when you're cooking for me to not have these in there."
Sure. And one of the other things that you can do as well, I know I've had this in my own community, is if you have favorite recipes that your family likes that you can modify in some way to meet your needs now that you're going through treatment, either
Mhm.
because you're not buying the packaged ingredients that went into it or you're purchasing better quality ingredients, to be able to make a little cookbook perhaps of 10 recipes. These are our family's favorites. If you would be willing to make these, that would be great. Because unfortunately, one of the things that happens is a lot of people love to make casseroles.
I know, which have, a lot of carbohydrates and unhealthy meat and
Yeah.
not gluten-free pasta and lots of cheese. And all of
Yes.
those things are stuff, maybe the kids could eat that if you have children at home, but it's not healthy for you. So, and if you don't have the energy to do this little recipes, your friends love to help you. And this is a
Yeah.
really nice thing. You could be in bed and you could say to your friends, "Here's the recipe," and somebody can sit there with their computer and type them up for you. It's a nice
Sure,
thing to do.
absolutely. Yeah, and I love that you mentioned cheese because that's one of the other things that's hugely important on this journey because conventional dairy is has a hormone, added hormone to it called RBGH, sometimes called RBST. It stands for
Mhm.
recombinant bovine somatropin or recombinant bovine growth hormone. And these are hormones that are given to the cows to make them make more milk.
And
Uh,
grow faster, yeah.
and so, it's more profitable for the farmer. Obviously, the more milk you can get out of one cow, the more money you make. But the challenge is those added hormones don't go away when you milk the cow. So they're part of the milk. And there are a lot of studies now that show that increased levels of RBGH and RBST are linked to higher levels of insulin growth factor 1 in
Which is
humans.
very bad, ladies, very bad. It drives
Yeah.
cancer, it drives angiogenesis, it drives cell growth, it drives cell division. You do not want that.
Right. And so that's where the only way to avoid that is to buy organic dairy
Mhm.
because organic it's not allowed. Or if you happen to be someone who's fortunate enough to know a farmer who is raising dairy cows and
Mhm.
sells on their farm. For example, my husband and I have someone in a neighboring town where they actually make their own cheeses
That's
and they
beautiful.
yeah, and their own, you can buy the milk from them to make your own yogurt and that sort of thing. And again, if you're not feeling well and that's something that's hard for you and you want to have a little yogurt, you could say to one of your friends, instead of making me a meal, could you get some organic milk and make me some yogurt? Like, that would be lovely, depending on what your aspect is on whether they can consume dairy or not.
I think some women can eat dairy. Yeah. I mean, if you're having lung issues, you should not be eating dairy, but if it works for you, I think organic yogurt is wonderful. And I want to say it's so easy to make it yourself, or for your friend to make it. Here's the key. It has to be in glass, no plastic.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is everybody has Instant Pots these days. Believe it or not, you can make a gallon of yogurt in an Instant Pot in, like, I think it's 4 hours or 5 hours. It's not very long. It's great.
An Instant Pot, the inside of it is glass, or it's stainless steel?
The inside is stainless steel.
Which is fine.
Yes. Yeah. And it has a glass lid. So it's very easy to do.
That's great.
Which is,
And what about yellow cheese? The cheese with the yellow, the yellow cheddar cheese, which we all grew up. Sure. Oh, cheddar cheese is yellow. It's like, really?
Yeah, I know. Well, we think a lot of these things that we grew up with, we think that they're normal. So that yellow actually comes from an ingredient called annatto, which is an extract from a plant. And annatto,
very powerful antioxidant.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, the levels that it appears in cheese, for some people, it can cause an allergic reaction. There are some people who may get a little itchy or a little wheezy. Other people, it's totally fine as long as it is annatto and not dyes. I don't think I have seen that many cheese products that have artificial dye in them.
Really?
But there are some, but it's not a lot. A lot of them tend to use annatto. The challenge is, if it's a softer cheese, you have to look at the label to make sure it's really cheese. Because, for example, they can make something called processed cheese food.
Those little squares.
Yes. Yeah. I know.
I grew up with that too. I haven't eaten that in probably 40 years, but we grew up with it. We used to love it. You melted it, and it's like,
yes, you melted it between 2 slices of Wonder Bread, and it was fabulous.
Oh my God.
Now I'm like, I can't believe that.
I can't. But my daughter never ate like that.
Yeah, well, my kids did, unfortunately. But anyhow, so the thing is, if it says cheese food, it is not cheese.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's 51%. It has to be at least 51% cheese for them to say that.
Okay.
But it's not really cheese. So, and that's like, it kind of goes along with a lot of the juices. If it says juice drink, it's not really juice either. Or if it says juice cocktail, it's not juice either.
Okay.
It's this concoction that's very high in sugar, and that's really not good for you.
Right. So I think that especially during and even after, one of the things that I'm hoping is happening for the women in my community all over the world is that the stuff that you buy in the health foods, in the regular supermarket, you're limited, really. It's like we're not spending money like that anymore because it's just unhealthy. It's like, if you want juice, you can juice an orange, or you can juice some carrot and celery, or you can ask some friends to make juice for you. But a juice drink, and I'm sure number 2 or number 1 ingredient is fructose corn syrup or something.
Yes, usually it is.
It's not good for you. It's feeding your cancer. It's something you want to avoid. So what else can women do to clean out their pantry, Mira?
One of the biggest things that I love to encourage people to do is to look at some of the things that are in there that we think we have to have because they appear to be convenient. And truthfully, we can make it ourselves, or we can find real world alternatives. And so for example, if you're looking at granola bars and things like that, granola bars sadly are nothing more than really a candy bar in a health wrapper. You know?
Lots of sugar. Mm.
Lots of sugar, absolutely. And so if you really want some kind of a bar or something like that, to look at, is that something that you can make yourself? The other thing is, I also love encouraging people to look for other options to some of those carby, crunchy snacks. For example, one of my favorites is to make these snack jars where you put a couple of tablespoons of hummus in the bottom of a wide mouth pint jar,
Mhm.
and then slice up a whole bunch of veggies,
That's
jicama,
beautiful.
and yeah, zucchini, carrots, celery, and stick them longwise into the jar.
Hmm.
And then, and because, you know, the hummus holds for a while, you can make like 3 or 4 days worth at a time and just have it there. And it's a grab and go snack. And really, you're not looking for potato chips. What you're looking for is the crunch.
And
So if you
protein.
have, yeah, if you have something else crunchy, then you're going to feel just as satisfied.
So I think that's a wonderful idea. And you could ask a helper to make that for you. And then it's there ready for you at any time and for your kids and family. It's a great idea. So I'm opening up my pantry and I look in and I have boxes of cereal, of processed food, of crackers. Am I going to throw all this stuff out or am I going to use it up and then gradually replace? What do you recommend?
So I generally recommend that if it's not an open box, if it's still closed, donate it to the food pantry.
Okay, it's a great
Because
idea.
while I don't necessarily love people eating all of those processed things, eating is better than not eating.
Yeah.
And so it gives you a chance to get rid of it and then make a healthier option right away. Because, you know, for example, all of the cereals and everything that we've been so conditioned to eat, we need to learn to think outside the cereal box. Because
Literally.
breakfast, literally, breakfast should be, you know, we should be getting enough protein and we should be getting some healthy fat and we should be getting some veggies. And so, you know, scrambled eggs with maybe a chicken breast or some steak and some greens and
Right.
a sliced tomato. Honestly, that takes 15 minutes start to finish to make. And
If
you're
that,
getting
if
some
you're having
veggies. Yeah,
leftovers, if you're having
right.
leftovers. I mean, the other thing is to make enough from dinner so that you have leftovers and all you need to do is add a piece of protein to it as you heat it up on top of the stove. Yeah.
Exactly. One of my other favorites is I absolutely adore making meatloaf muffins.
Yeah.
So
Love
you
that
make
idea.
meatloaf, your favorite meatloaf recipe, and then instead of baking it in a loaf pan, you bake it in muffin tins. So that's a great thing to do.
And they're in the freezer, and then all you have to do is take one out the night before and heat that up on top of the stove with an egg or something, or some veggies, and you're great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, you know, one of the other things to do is to look at how some other cultures eat. For example, they'll have legumes in the morning with veggies, you know, so you could
Mhm.
have like a lentil soup or, you know, a bean stew or something like that. That could be really great. And then just looking to make sure that you're adding those veggies, because if you're adding veggies to your diet, a healthy person should be getting 5 to 7 cups of vegetables a day.
Right. That
And
standard American diet people do not do that.
exactly. And so most people go, well, how am I going to eat all those veggies? Well, if you can add a cup to a cup and a half of veggies to your breakfast, you're one up on everybody else.
Right. I think
So
what you
that's
just
really good.
said about other cultures is really important because the American culture, if you travel across the world, the American culture is the only culture that has been brainwashed, and we have been brainwashed, that cereal is in a box.
Yeah.
And breakfast is in a box. Breakfast consists of cereal in a box or a Pop-Tart.
Oh,
And
or egg waffles or
right.
something.
Yeah,
Yes.
frozen something and that is not breakfast. That is the advertising companies making a lot of money from you. And part of healing from breast cancer or any serious chronic disease is taking your life back with your food and saying, no, I am not going to spend my money on this unhealthy food. I am going to get help or I'm going to make it myself. And it's not good for me and it's not good for my family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other thing that I really like to do is I love to encourage people to add soaked or sprouted nuts and seeds to their diet. because those are very nutrient dense. And again, they're crunchy and they're a good source of protein and they're a great source of micronutrients.
And how do we sprout nuts, Mira, or seeds? What do we do? Hello, Shirley from Kentucky.
It's really easy. And basically what you do is you take 4 cups of, whatever it is that you want to sprout. So let's just say almonds, 4 cups of almonds, and you put them in a jar with 2 teaspoons of sea salt and then cover it with water and let it sit. And I generally let them sit about 4 to 5 hours and then strain it. And then you're going to dry it. I'll send you the recipe. But you're going to dry it in the oven or in a dehydrator, and dehydrators are not that expensive anymore. You can get a reasonable quality one for less than $50 at the store, or you can probably buy one online.
They could also just put it on a cookie sheet and put it in the
put it on a cookie sheet. Yes, you can. So I want to say it's 175 because you want it to still be a live food.
Okay.
And so anything that goes over 180, there's a little bit of enzymatic breakdown.
Right.
So 175, it does take a long time. And that reminds me, I have a really funny story to share. I had a client that I was talking to about sprouted and soaked nuts. And I said, a dryer. And he said, well, I have a dryer in my home. Can I use that?
Oh, no. Like, I already know what we're talking about. Oh, no. That's what you're going to say. He put them in the washing machine dryer, the dryer.
Yeah, that's what he thought he could do. He's like, can I do a lot of them and just do them in the dryer? I'm like, no.
Thank goodness they asked. Okay, so when we're talking about drying our food, we're talking about either a dehydrator or the oven.
Yes, yes. Low temp for a long time.
What's that mean? 6 hours or overnight?
So it depends on where you are. Like I live in a very humid environment, and so for me, it's like 12 hours at 175. So you do it overnight.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Okay. But right now, if you're living, it's not. It's very hot
right. So probably do them much quicker than that.
Yeah, you could put them outside and they'd probably be dry in 10 minutes because it's 130 degrees there. So, okay. So we've opened up the pantry. We're looking the boxes that are closed, we're donating, and the boxes that are open. What are the worst offending things that we should just throw out?
Really anything that has those negative ingredients that we don't want to be eating. And I know it's really hard because you paid for those foods,
right?
But I truly believe that your health is worth more than saving a few pennies because there's artificial colors or MSG or benzoates or nitrates or other things like that in the food.
And I would like to add that boxed cereals should just go out. Into the compost or the trash can. I'm sorry. That's a pet peeve of mine, boxed cereal. It's just so atrocious. Or frozen waffles or Pop-Tarts or something. It's like the children do not need to eat that, nor do you. And Mira, how can people reach you and about your book? Tell us all about your book.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So I am the author of this wonderful book. It's called The Pantry Principle, How to Read the Label and Understand What's Really in Your Food. And so that you can buy the book on Amazon. And then to learn more about me, you can find me at theingredientguru.com.
I love that. That's so easy, right?
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm online. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I share all the time. So lots of really great information.
And she does. She has wonderful information. And I think it's very important that it's so easily accessible, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed with everything you feel you quote unquote should do. But with guides such as Mira, you do one step at a time, and before you know it, within 2 to 3 months, you're totally transformed. And that's true for what I'm proposing within my community also. We can't go from eating the way you used to eat to eating differently and taking your supplements all at once, but a little bit at a time really makes a big difference. And that is the message that we're sharing with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning, one step at a time. So, right now we've covered artificial colors, we've covered hormones, we've covered ingredients that are not good for you, secret sources of sugar, all kinds of things. And so it's very easy to get very overwhelmed. Pick one thing. Say, you know what? no more hormone in my dairy. I'm going to figure that one out. Or no more artificial colors in anything, personal care or whatever. Start there, read those labels, be vigilant, master that, and then move on to something else and add that in. Everything that you do, every change you make is one step more than you were doing before, and it all adds up.
And it's one step closer towards health and well-being.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is what we're all aiming for. Well, Mira, thank you so much for spending a few minutes in your busy day with all of us here. And we hope to see you again soon. And this is Carol Laurie signing off for now, and there'll be more later. So have a lovely afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.